Come now, if a man can be despondent over losing one single woman, well, that's all the more man he is. Surely a talented servant could find others to fill the gap. Now you're talking silly talk. Chu crossed her arms and tilted her head. Our duo had once been part of a banquet in the western capital. That banquet also served as a chance for Yue to meet potential matches. Everyone gathered their hope to become the consort of the imperial younger brother, so our duo had resolved not to intercede. Anyone he might pick had been there because they had hoped he might pick her. After that, and after briefly being under the misimpression that Yue had some strange proclivities, our duo had been relieved when she heard that his heart was simply set on Maomao. She was confident that no vixen or villainess would take advantage of him. However, our duo also knew Maomao, and she couldn't help seeing herself in the young woman. Now Maomao looked at our duo. Lady Arduke said I couldn't care less about Miss Chu's mission, but it was because she accepted it that I am in the position I am now. Are you sure about this? You won't regret it. I mean to negotiate as best I can to ensure that I don't. He. Are you planning to have a big greenhouse built on the palace grounds? Chu drawled. Sounds pretty good to me. The fact that Maomao and Chu could banter even at a moment like this went to show how well they got along. If anything, Arduke's words seemed to strengthen Maomao's resolve. Maybe an orchard while you're at it. Miss Chu would love to be able to stuff herself with fresh lychees, just like one of those legendary beauties. It might be possible if we grow them in my greenhouse, but too many lychees can make you dizzy. Oh me, oh my, surely 100 or so should be all right though. Stick to about 10. It was a silly conversation, but somehow Arduke found herself relaxing as she listened. She had always thought Maomao was a young woman who simply lived as she pleased, not worrying about anyone else's expectations. She would have to apologize for misjudging her. Though she was free, Maomao was more flexible than Arduke had realized. When faced with a confined place, she didn't seek to escape or even destroy it. Instead, she changed her form to get whatever she could from the situation. It was a way of living that had never occurred to the 14-year-old Arduke. But it's certainly one way to go about life, she murmured. She remembered the request she had once made of Yo, make me the mother of the country. She had been sure that if those were the strings she attached, he would give up on keeping her around. They could just say they'd been joking, that it was all in good fun. But they had been the wrong words. Let me remain your friend. That was what she should have said, even if it was futile. She should have told him what she was really thinking. Even now, some 20 years after that promise had been made, Arduke could not be apart from Yo. She had left the rear palace, but she found herself facing the unusual situation of being sequestered in an annex. Normally, a high consort, even a former one, would have had to continue living within the rear palace walls. Because she had been given her own residence even after being expelled from the rear palace, no one could or did ignore Arduke. Simple banishment might have been easier. Instead, Arduke was kept here in her pavilion, entrusted with Suhari and the Shi clan children. It was as if to tell her that even now that she was no longer the emperor's instructor, no longer his consort, she still had work to do. Abruptly, Arduke sighed. Have I become a weight around his neck? Was Yo now trying to constrain not just Arduke but her son as well? And was that son trying to constrain Maomao? That was the thought that had made her ache at her powerlessness, and it had led to her suggestion to Maomao. But she had misread the young woman. Maomao was far more flexible and strong and stubborn than Arduke. Maomao, she said. Yes, ma'am, is there anything you want? I'm not sure what you're asking. I don't know much about herbs and all that, but I could give you a treasure from my time as consort. If you sold it, I presume it would bring in enough to buy you a nice medicine or two. The suggestion was Arduke's way of apologizing for having called Maomao out here. Covering one's faults with money and gifts was somewhat crass, but she didn't expect Maomao to object. A treasure, ma'am. Would you happen to have any pearls? Pearls, that's unexpected. Are you a fan of them? Oh yes, they're good for eye diseases, skin problems and all kinds of other things. Maomao's eyes lit up. I'm honestly more concerned about quantity than quality. I'm just going to grind them up anyway. She knew perfectly well that any of Arduke's accessories would have been gifts from His Majesty, but she didn't hide the fact that she planned to destroy them. Arduke couldn't hold back a laugh. Ha 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 ha, take whatever you like. And what about coral? Do you need some of that? If I could, ma'am. Oh, what a waste. Chu was practically sucking her fingers, wishing she could have some, but she soon replaced her fingers with baked treats. Arduke laughed uproariously and she privately made a wish. Don't let Yue walk the same path as Yo. Chapter 15. Jinchi's shock. Maomao's resolution. The incense worked its way into Jinchi's nose. Don't you think it's a bit strong? he asked. He was talking with Suhan as he ate his dinner. Maybe you're just not used to it anymore. You spent so long in the western capital where we had to conserve incense. You think so? Jinshi picked up some meat with his chopsticks. This dish used plenty of tender pork, and even though the meat was fatty, the spices gave it a clean, refreshing flavor. Other offerings included eel stir-fry, snapping turtle soup, and more. In fact, there was noticeably more food here than usual, including many that boosted stamina. The meal seems awfully heavy tonight, Jinshi remarked. Maybe you're just not used to it anymore. It's that long stay in the western capital. Go on now, eat up, Sugan said and chuckled. Ho 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 ho, this all struck Jinshi as very strange. Then he looked over at the guard at the door to his chambers. Wasn't Basin on duty tonight? Basin has some kind of gathering of the named clans tomorrow, so I sent him home. He talked about something with Maomao that left him very fidgety. Basin and Maomao talking about something. Jinshi began to suspect Maomao was plotting something. At the moment, however, he had a feeling the plot he should be worried about was Suhan's. What's with the flower petals floating in my bath? He asked. They'd been a nuisance, sticking to his skin as he tried to bathe. Wasn't the temperature just perfect? And I put in some herbs and minerals that promote good blood flow and metabolism. At this point, even Jinshi was starting to connect the dots. After all, he had made similar preparations for the emperor during his time in the rear palace. If Suhan was doing all this, it meant someone was coming this evening. And Jinshi had sent Maomao a letter a few days before. Suhan, could it be Maomao is coming tonight? It has been so long since we saw her. You wrote to her several times, didn't you? It was true. Jinshi had sent her a number of letters. Mostly they were reports of his recent goings-on. He hadn't sent her explicit instructions to visit him at his residence. He had, however, said he wished to see her and talk whenever she had a moment, whenever work wasn't too busy. Hold on a second. It's just Maomao, right? It had been more than 2 weeks since they had returned to the royal capital. This would be the first time Maomao was coming to Jinshi's residence. The last time you saw each other was when you were getting off the boat, yes. Oh, everyone has been so busy ever since we got home. She sent word that she finally had a moment to catch her breath. All right, but if Maomao is coming, then what's all this? Jinshi looked toward his bedroom. Incense was burning, a stronger smell than usual. The bedclothes had all been changed, and rose petals out of season were scattered on top. The normal canopy of his bed had been exchanged for a translucent woven one with a flower pattern. Vases of flowers and beeswax candles dotted the room, providing a sweet aroma along with a gently flickering light that gave the chamber a fantastical atmosphere. Jinshi quickly put out the incense and candles and opened the window to change the air. He threw the flower petals in the trash and put away the vases. Huff puff, oh goodness, don't, oh goodness me, what are you doing to my room? Maomao had once attempted to entertain Jinshi at the Verdigris house, and what was happening here reminded him of that day. Well, ambience is so important to any endeavor. You and Maomao share the same feelings now, young master. They're the same feelings. In a mounting panic, Jinshi began to look this way and that. He tried to affect nonchalance, but the corner of his mouth twitched. It did take such a long time. This old lady worried so much. To see my young master, our nation's jewel, the man they call an immortal treasure manifested in the human realm, who attracts young and old, men and women alike revert to acting like a child his age. Then again, many young men your age already have children of their own. Ahem, I do. That's not. Jinshi hadn't exactly hidden what had happened with Maomao from Sugan, but he hadn't spelled it out for her either. There had been so many other people on that boat that they hadn't had much really, any time to be alone together. He'd been so sure no one had noticed anything. I may be an old lady, but my woman's intuition is still as sharp as ever, Sugan said with another chortle. Ooh-hoo-hoo, she squinted merrily, and Jinshi found himself truly afraid. Jinshi scratched his head, looking as awkward as he felt. All right, but this is Maomao we're talking about. Yes, and Maomao is more than 20 years old, you know. She may be an innocent maiden, but she has knowledge. When a gentleman sends her a letter that is not about work and asks her to come to his room, I am sure she understands what that means. Suren smiled openly as she spoke. But this room, I simply thought it might be best to be open about it. It's too open. The atmosphere should be more subtle, more thoughtful. No, that's not my point. Jinshi sat on the edge of his bed and tore at his hair. He was beginning to feel something more than just embarrassment. He took a swig of the water by his bed, trying to distract himself. Oh, that's PBBBT. It was very strange tasting water. In fact, the smell, however faint, was alcoholic. Suhan, what did you put in this? The water wasn't poisoned as such, but what was in it was not unlike what had been in his dinner. He felt his pulse quicken and his body grow hot. Heavens, I only put in the slightest bit, and you still noticed. I promise it is not poison. Of course I noticed, and Maomao will sniff it out the minute she gets close. Suhan reluctantly collected the carafe. Phew, Jinshi took a deep breath, trying to calm his pounding heart. What was an adult man, already more than 20 years old, doing feeling so shaken by this? More than one woman had sneaked into his bedchamber after all. He had found himself pressed to their generous chests, moist red lips coming toward him. He had been nauseated by the overpowering smell of incense. He remembered the guards dragging those people away by the hair as they screeched. He had tried to ignore them, but he felt he knew womankind through and through. But he had been, as the proverb had it, a frog in a well. A frog, it was an unpleasant word to remember. He unconsciously glanced down between his legs, then realized he had been poisoned by Maomao. He was sure that was not an ordinary word for that part of the anatomy. Calm down, he repeated to himself, as if intoning the words of a sutra. Perhaps he should do some training. Jinshi was still thinking in circles when his visitor arrived. Ah, hello Maomao, it has been much too long. Please come in. Yes, Lady Sukan. Jinshi heard her voice, tired and sluggish. He straightened his collar and took a deep breath. Then he headed for the living room, trying to act as if nothing were amiss. Maomao, as usual, looked like she was already half asleep. She was holding a large cloth sack. It has been quite a while, he said. Yes, Master Jinshi. Do you want something to drink? This was normally the part where Suhan would put out tea, but today was different. Instead, there were beautiful glass vessels filled with fragrant distilled spirits. They were powerfully alcoholic. Even when Jinshi wanted such a drink, she never let him have one because it would impact his work the next day. Now it was before him and in some quantity. Ooh, Maomao, her eyes shining, was entranced by the amber liquid. The way she began to drool revealed exactly how much she wanted a drink. Still, it wouldn't do for her to completely forget Jinshi was there, so he pointedly put some snacks in front of her. Alcohol alone is bad for the body, he said. The snacks were a mixture of walnuts, peanuts and pine nuts, gently toasted and lightly salted. They were accompanied by dried figs and longan, but Maomao had eyes only for the alcohol. How is work? Jinshi asked. The first day back, a corpse was discovered in the freak strategist's office and we had to investigate the death. She jumped right in with the most astounding thing. Did the strategist do it? Jinshi asked, just to be sure. That old fart wouldn't dirty his own hands, not physically. Anyway, as it turned out, it was garden variety jealousy. If it had been him, surely you would have heard about it, Master Jinshi. Fair point. Physically, she seemed to be implying that Lakan didn't have the strength. That was true enough, he thought, calling to mind Lakan's total lack of physical prowess. The one thing he did have was initiative. With that thought in mind, Jinshi looked at Maomao. She was frail but utterly audacious. In spite of her tendency to lack motivation, when she got the bit between her teeth, she was formidable. He was reminded anew how much father and daughter resembled each other. The question of whether Lakan knew Maomao was at Jinshi's residence at that moment was a worrying one. Maomao was drinking the alcohol and clearly enjoying it. Suhan had prepared some for Jinshi as well, though it was cut with water, unlike Maomao's. Jinshi could hold his liquor reasonably well, but Maomao could drink him under the table. If he started gulping down distilled spirits, he would pass out. And what about you, Master Jinshi? How is your work going? It is the same as always. I made my report to His Majesty, but my position remains much as it was before. I always seem to have to entertain the most absurd petitions. Still, I am not as busy as I was in the Western capital. You are still young, sir, and you have plenty of stamina. That is the only reason you are still alive. Most people would have worked themselves to death by now. Maomao accompanied this comment with an ooh, and smacked her lips at the alcohol. Did you have dinner before you came? He asked. No, sir. It is too much trouble to make by myself, so I skipped it. I have leftovers from mine. Would you like them? Just drinking the alcohol without even touching the snack would not be good for her. Suan had been so excited about dinner that she made a great deal of it. Maybe she had deliberately made enough for Maomao. I would be lying if I said I did not. Maomao looked conflicted. It was unusual. She of all people never had to be asked twice. Is there some reason you would not eat it? I am not sure I would call it a reason as such. She looked at the ground. But I have made some preparations of my own. Jinshi put down his drink. Maomao looked much the same as she always did, but he thought her skin glowed a bit more than usual. The tan she had gotten in the western capital was slowly fading. She had not drawn in her freckles. Instead, she had used just a touch of whitening powder. Mingled with the scent of the incense in the room, Jinchi thought he could catch a whiff of scented oil that Maomao was wearing. Her hair seemed slightly damp. She must have bathed before she came. Maomao emptied her glass. "May I go rinse my mouth?" she asked. Of course, normally he might have expected her to empty the bottle then ask for another one. "Then perhaps we should go within, Master Jinchi." Yes, of course. What was this? He felt like he was dreaming. No, he shouldn't expect too much. She would check the brand on his flank like she always did, and that would be it. "Is it just me, Master Jinchi, or are you a bit out of sorts tonight? Who me?" No, Maomao, usually so calm and collected, almost looked self-conscious. "May I ask something, Maomao, just to be sure?" Jinchi swallowed hard. He had to be clear about this. "You know what it means to enter my bedroom at this moment, don't you?" "Yes, sir. It's not about caring for any illness or treating any injury. I'm aware, sir, that informed the preparations I made." She showed him what she had brought with her, and Jinchi's face got hotter than ever. He was desperate to look calm. To seem composed, he turned away. Sugen was suddenly nowhere to be found, and his guards could and had read the room. Basin wasn't there. "You don't need a bath, I've bathed, although if you wish I'll do so again." "No, it's all right." From the way Maomao smelled, Jinchi knew that she must have bathed. He put his hand on his heart in an effort to slow it down. It was beating so hard he was sure she could hear it. It was Jinchi who wished he could take a bath. He'd done so earlier, but between the alcohol and everything else he was sweating profusely. However, he couldn't beg leave to wash himself at that moment. Instead, they headed into the bedchamber. The room had aired out and the suffocating smell of incense was gone. The flower petals on the bed had vanished, as had the water with the strange medicaments. Now, what would happen next? He couldn't wait for his heart to stop pounding anymore. His cheeks were still flushed, but it was a little late to worry about that. Jinchi gently picked Maomao up. She had gained a little weight since the last time he held her, but she was still light. Her hair smelled of camellia oil. "Are you sure about this? I told you I came prepared, didn't I?" She averted her eyes as if begging him not to make her say it again. He found it a little annoying but very Maomao-esque. He wasn't the only nervous one. She was too. Realizing he wasn't alone gave Jinchi some relief. "What kind of preparations did you make?" he asked her. "I skipped breakfast and dinner." That he hadn't expected. "Why, were you so busy experimenting that you forgot to eat?" "I also stopped drinking water half a day ago. I suppose I should have abstained from alcohol too, but the drink earlier was so delicious, I had to have just 1 cup. Water too." Jinchi couldn't imagine the point of such measures. "Ideally, I should skip food for 3 days and water for an entire day." "I'm sorry I couldn't do better. I have tomorrow off, but today I had work, so I needed some energy." "Seriously, what are you talking about? It's what we do at the verdigris house when an important customer buys someone's first time. There can't be anything to spoil the moment. It's better to starve and thirst for a little while than to taste an enraged client's fist. I'm not sure buy is the word I would have chosen for this." Jinchi scowled. No matter the context, he didn't want Maomao to torment herself that way. "I'm not sure I'll be very skilled at any of this, and I'll shame myself if I fail." Maomao's eyes were serious. He'd learned that she had the soul of a craftsperson, bent on doing her very best at anything she attempted, no matter what it was. Still confused, Jinchi let out a breath. The point was, she wasn't going to try to finagle a way out like she had last time. She was being proactive, which made him very happy. "Also, may I have some boiled water? Feeling thirsty after all." "No." Maomao opened the large cloth package. Packets of medicine came out, along with all sorts of other things Jinchi didn't recognize. "What's all this?" "They have lantern plant root, white blossom and balsam berries in them, among other things." Jinchi recognized all those names, and the combination meant something to him. "Those are all plants you said to be wary of in the rear palace," he exclaimed, more loudly than he'd meant to. "That's right." Maomao was completely blasé. The rear palace was a place for giving birth to and raising the emperor's children. It had to be purged of anything that might be harmful. Hence all of these plants were forbidden there. "Why do you have those here? Lady Suren has already vetted them." "Don't worry, sir, I'm not going to use them on you. They're for me." Once again, her eyes were completely serious. "I have tools that can do physical damage as well, but they aren't very effective, and I know you don't appreciate that sort of thing, Master Jinchi, so I thought it might be best not to use them." Next, Maomao took out some kind of cylinder carefully wrapped in paper. "This is made with ox intestines, and I wasn't sure how that would sit with you." She gently put away the thing made with the intestine of an ox, whatever it was. I get it. These are all to prevent pregnancy. Yes, sir. So when you said you had worked hard to prepare, I gathered everything I could get my hands on in the pleasure district. Jinchi promptly blanched. He felt cold all over. Having accepted your feelings, Master Jinchi, I also accept what comes with them, even having relations. But I must draw a bright line when it comes to that agreement. I will not become Empress Gyokai's enemy. Jinchi bit his lip hard. He'd been thoughtless. Had he forgotten who and what he was? To Maomao he might be Jinchi, but what did everyone else call him? The Emperor's own younger brother, Kazuijitsu the Moon Prince. Empress Gyokai's son, the Crown Prince, was still very young, and moreover he resembled his mother. Most Linese had black hair and eyes, and more than a few might look askance at one with red hair and green eyes standing atop the whole nation. Thus, there were those within the court who called for Consort Lihua's son to be made Crown Prince, or for Jinchi to be returned to the position. In those circumstances, for Jinchi to conceive a child with a young woman to whom he was not even married, imagine what that would mean.